Welcome to another episode of the Astro Witch podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the upcoming transit Venus in Leo happening on June 5th, 2023. If you want to know more about how this transit can impact you individually based on your rising sign, feel free to check out my Patreon. On the Patreon, I am going to do deep dives into every rising sign to say which every transit that comes up that sparks interest is going to potentially bring for the different rising signs. Additionally, you get early access at least a day before, but up to 3 days before the rest of the world gets to see the podcast, and unedited versions of the podcast. So, if that's something that interests you, go ahead and join today. This is the major transit that's happening this week. We have Venus coming into Leo. It's going to be conjunct with Mars in Leo. Venus and Mars conjuncting in a sign that is more preferable for Mars than Cancer was is certainly going to be a great change. And I think perhaps some of you might already be seeing or feeling this positive change that was Mars going into Leo. And now that Venus is there, it's going to be comforting Mars and uplifting Mars even more. This transit brings the energy of love and action together and can even add a little bit of extra spice to Venus's already quite spicy nature. This is the perfect time to be enjoying Venus in Leo for a little bit before Venus ultimately slows down and stations retrograde in the sign of Leo. This week may still be a little tense because Mars is there, particularly if you have a day chart or you simply have a rough relationship with Mars. It can kind of pressure Venus in certain areas of life. And it's not necessarily going to be in a bad way, but it's like the necessary pressure that we all need in order to start moving things. So there's a little bit of tension because Mars is there. For those of you with a good relationship with Mars, perhaps you have a night chart or a domicile exalted Mars, Mars in its own triplicity or bounds, Mars with some kind of accidental dignity. And if that's the case, this will be like the pressure that you need in order to make movement around love, self-love, luxury, beauty, things relating to Venus, even your own art. And you're going to want to look at where Leo is in your chart in order to see where this pressure could be. So for example, Leo risings with this transit going through the first house can be pressured around new things that you need to create, new beginnings, things you need to do for yourself, or even your life direction. The first house is new starts and new beginnings. But it could also be self-care and self-love. This is a wonderful opportunity for Leo risings to kind of go through any areas of their own insecurity and the relationship with self that are lacking or slacking, and to start to pick up those pieces in order to have an easier upcoming Venus in Leo. On the bright side, Venus brings about comfort for Mars. So while Mars may create a little bit of tension and pressure and truth that can create positive actions, and it offers a sense of support, like I said, for Mars. Venus and Mars are sect mates, sect friends, so that support is more appreciated for Mars than from some of the other planets. On the dark side, it can be a little tiring for Mars. Ultimately, Mars will be moving on from this sign and Venus will be remaining, so we will get a little bit of Venus in Leo without Mars's harsh influence. I think Venus in Leo, just speaking on the energy of it altogether, is really fun, funky, and passionate because it brings the energy of like love, lightness, softness, and beauty and art, and it has it in this Leo energy. So, Leo energy is big, bold, brave, good, just, kind energy. It's the energy of the sun, of radiating, of giving warmth and generosity and life to others. And when we bring the planet of love into this sign, Venus is going to be functioning with the resources of that big, abundant, generous, caretaking Leo energy and leader energy. And so there's even a little bit of action and pressure that comes inherently from Leo. And when we bring Mars into this sign, it's working with those Leo resources, but it's more comfortable with those Leo resources than it would have been with Cancer. Like Mars in Cancer is working with kind of changeable, wishy-washy, deep, emotional, public and private, very hot and cold type of energy. But as Mars comes into Leo, it gets to deal with the heat, the passion, the boldness, the leadership. And in fact, those are many of the bright sides, the positive sides of Mars itself as a planet. And Venus being there to actually calm down Mars and encourage it to bring out more of its kind of love and sensuality, and less of its harsh exterior. It's like Venus is that one person who can see through the harsh exterior of Mars and helps bring the energy of love and compassion together. Next week, we're going to be having Mercury entering Gemini, which is going to be a highly supportive transit because Mercury is very happy in Gemini, so that will be a lovely and favorable time for the overall energy, but we'll talk more about that then. I will see you next week. Thank you for watching another episode of the Astro Witch. I know this is a quicker one, but there was really just one transit that I wanted to talk about,